Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. And this is a podcast where we get real about what it takes to break free from ultra processed food and build a life rooted in wholeness, purpose, and joy. Today's episode is inspired by our logo, which is the tree of life. At the trunk of our tree is real food, whole, unprocessed, single ingredient food. It grounds us. It's what we turn to again and again for nourishment and stability. And from that trunk come our roots. And from those roots grow our branches, which are sleep, movement, spirituality, mindset, service, purpose, and all the beautiful things that make life worth living. It allows us to truly thrive, starting with the roots. Everything starts from the roots. So, Jamie, how do you see that role of single ingredient, non processed food in establishing this strong foundation for overall health? We were very purposeful about choosing that. So, let me hear what your thoughts are on that.
Very purposeful in choosing the imagery. I'm very visual, so it was very important to me to um, have that visual representation of what recovery is. And the tree of life is, it's biblical. It's something that's very
Hmm.
spiritual. It's in a lot of trees are present in a lot of spiritual practices and teachings. So it just felt like the right metaphor for RFR. And again, if we look at single ingredient unprocessed foods being the sort of the center that everything um, funnels through.
Yeah.
Everything good comes out of the roots and out of the that trunk of the tree. So if you have rotten roots or roots that aren't getting fed or being choked off by structures underneath the ground, you don't have good fruit on the tree. The tree can't
Hmm.
grow. And again, this is biblical too, right? That going back to the, vine and the branches and all of that. But it's it really is. If you don't have a good underlying foundation to what you're building, nothing can build.
Well, I love what you said, just everything funnels through.
Hmm.
That visual really that struck me when you said that. It's so true.
Yes.
It all goes through that. So let's talk about these roots since we're on that topic. These are the foundational choices that feed everything else, kind of what you said, pun intended, it feeds everything else. And for us at Real Food Recovery, that starts with, again, I'm a broken record, the single ingredient unprocessed food. It's not just about dieting, it's about giving your body the most trustworthy life-giving fuel so your brain can stabilize, your hormones can regulate, and your nervous system can find peace. And I don't think I'm overstating that at all. I used to try and fix my sleep, my mindset, my relationships, but when I was still eating ultra processed food, I was running on this chaotic foundation. The more stable my food became, the more my branches started to flourish. I never had made that connection between the clean food and a good life, mostly because I was always trying to diet away my problems. So I
Mm.
didn't understand I was making everything so much worse. So I'd love to ask you, what were some of the first signs that your branches were actually growing stronger after really committing to nourishing these roots with real food like we've been talking about?
I just noticed a calm brain, a focused brain. I noticed that I was able to emotionally regulate myself in a much more balanced way. I was much less reactive to life. I was, calmer. I mean, all the things.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's just huge. I think it impacts everything. And I think I noticed a big difference in my thought life too, how I talk to myself. I realized I was capable of so much more. Do you
Mhm.
feel like your inner dialogue, like the needle moved a little bit? There was a shift when you made changes in your diet?
Um, I would say definitely. I think that I had a true belief that, uh, you know, it was much more calm. I was much more centered. I
Yeah.
had a belief that I could handle things that life threw at me in a
Yes.
very organized, capable way. Um, I recently had to move, and I've seen a lot of just my ability around my new place. I just have a lot more confidence in in my skills. I'm a lot more resilient. Um, with when things go wrong, I have just a lot more tools that I can access, right? I think I always, I've worked a long time in recovery. I have a lot of tools, but sometimes when I was in the processed food and using food for ease and comfort, highly processed, highly, chemical laden foods, I was not able to access my tools as readily
I
as
agree
I
with
do
that
now.
statement. Yeah, that's
And
very well put.
I'll give you, an example. Yesterday, I took my car in for some paint work and um little scratches, chips, that kind of stuff. Not, just stuff that happens on a car after a few years old. It's a few years old. And I had called, made the appointment, had all the stuff, had, twice had conversations with the people. I'm bringing the car in on this day. I took time off from work in the morning, like all the things. I show up, they're like, we don't have you on the calendar. I'm like, I talked to this person twice, and they said, yeah, our paint guy was here yesterday and he won't be here tomorrow.
Oh,
I mean, I was very, and I just said, I'm very angry right now. I said, I have done everything I needed to do. I was confirmed 3 times by the people I spoke to.
yeah.
I said, I rearranged my whole, I was home working yesterday. I could have easily brought the car in. I had anyone communicating this to me. So I said, I did everything I could on my end. What are you going to do to fix this? And they were like, well, we're going to give you a loaner car and we're going to keep your car and we'll work on it starting today and then we'll finish it by Tuesday. I'm like, great, thank you. But I was able to stay calm, focused, and own what I did or didn't do,
Yeah.
and then put the responsibility right on the responsible party to fix it.
And I love that it sounds like your tone didn't change. You weren't screaming, you weren't yelling, you were
No,
just,
no,
that's so much more effective, don't you think?
yes,
We're just having a
yes,
conversation and I'm letting you know how it is.
yes, exactly. Yep.
Oh, I love that. And I'm curious to know if there are any surprises for you, like branches that grew that you didn't expect. For example, Jamie and I just finished writing our book, Real Food Recovery. If Food Isn't the Answer, What's the Question on Amazon? And I had no idea I could write anything. How would I ever have the opportunity to even know that? But it opened up a whole new world that I would never have discovered had I not been in that position. And it really stimulated this creative branch, which is one of our big branches. And I think it does a tremendous amount for people in recovery. Even making my cooking videos that I do became so much more enjoyable, but I also had to tap into that education branch because I had to learn new software to do all these new modifications, which was terrifying. Just like when we started RFR, learning so many new computer functions was terrifying. But Jamie was very patient in walking me through that process and learning all about Google systems. But there's no way that all of that would not have driven me back to the sugar before. I took it like a man. I buckled down and I had the capability. I think I had the brain space to tap into that area that I needed to apply myself because I'm
Yes.
so much better at concentrating now. And I would love to learn to play the piano. I took lessons when I was a kid, but I would love to get back to that. I'd love to take Spanish. And so, yeah, any big surprises for you with branch development that you wouldn't have maybe thought of before?
Yeah, my spiritual branch has definitely
Ah,
flourished for sure. For
mm-hmm.
sure. And I've gotten back into playing piano and all of those
Oh,
things. Took up knitting and want to learn a little bit more there. So it's allowed me to get into more hobbies than I had before.
I like that. I hobbies are underrated, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
I think that when you have those purposeful little dots throughout your day in different areas, that creativity just, I don't know, it kind of lights me on fire.
Mm,
Yeah. Glad I did not know that you were a piano player.
mhm.
Very, I'm
Learning again, yes.
feels good.
Yes.
So I'm fully aware that all this does not just happen on its own. We don't just happen into hobbies or education or any of these other branches. It takes time, commitment, discipline, and dedication to keep going. And we often hear about people who lack motivation to keep up the lifestyle, which is, I think, very common when people are trying to make changes, to keep up that motivation that you initially get and you're on fire and then it just starts to fade. So let's talk about how you support these branches now that they're starting to grow strong. So what keeps me firmly planted, as we mentioned, is it all starts with clean food. I know I'm a broken record, but that's how powerful it is in my life. And I cannot emphasize that enough. And it all, for me, it just all kind of rolls downhill from there. And I know if I get off track with food, it's like this domino effect the rest of the day. Recently, I had a girlfriend tell me it's like getting a flat tire and then you go out and you slash all the other three, which I thought was so true when she said that. So it's hard for me to make the
Mhm.
safest decisions if my food is off. So I
Yes.
protect that with every fiber of my being because it brings me so much peace. And that being said, everything stems from organization in my life. That is a big one as far as success. So food prep for me is essential. And I'm filled with joy every day when I can just reach in the refrigerator and whatever I need is just waiting for me. It makes a complete difference in my day. And I sound like I'm dramatic, but it really does bring me inner calm. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to care for myself in such a loving way. Do you want to talk about how you support your roots and branches?
Yeah, I mean, food prep for sure, and just getting good sleep and prioritizing my sleep and my the comfort that I have around that, right? My sleep hygiene, we've talked a lot about that. I have a whole
Totally.
episode on it. And as I'm getting settled, in this new place, that's something that I prioritized to make sure that I have a a room that promotes sleep. The first thing I did when I landed here, so to speak, was before the furniture was brought from the old place to the new place. I made sure the refrigerator was stocked, and I made sure that everything that I
Ah,
had, ready to roll so I could just grab from the fridge instead of having to go out for food or order it. I'm also making sure that, I structure my day to spend time outside. I mean, this is the middle of summer for Texas, so that's you don't do that in the middle of the day. You do very first thing in the morning or late at night. And that really helps for me to do that. Um, to make sure that I'm prioritizing that time for activity and time for being outside in nature. All of that really really helps.
I agree. I agree. So the key takeaway here is that our tree grows upward and outward, but it always starts below the surface, which is kind of what you were talking about. And I love how it correlates to that future self thinking that we really, really emphasize in recovery. I was talking to someone earlier today about they were saying they really wanted to get to the gym, but they just can't quite get there. And the motivation and all that. And had an opportunity to lay that one liner on that we do what we do for how we feel after and explain that I don't want to go to the gym every day either, but
Yeah.
I know how much I'm going to feel better. And mentally, it's what I rely on
Yeah.
to keep myself sane. So, do you want to talk about how nourishing those deeper, unseen parts of yourself, those below the surface roots, help shape that future self that you're becoming in recovery, like a moment when you realized your future self was growing even before you could fully see the results, that things were kind of moving in the right direction?
I mean, yeah, just always making choices for today on, everything that I do today needs I need to remember whether it's choices that promote recovery or don't. I have to remember that what I choose to do today is always going to come out tomorrow, right? And it could be for the good or it could be for the bad.
I
But
love that.
I need to remember that both ways.
Yeah, I love that. And we know that no tree is strong all the time. I recently just was coming back from an overseas trip, and the flights were a disaster. They were a disaster going where flights
Mm,
were canceled, everything was delayed, and then you're just operating in chaos. And well, it started happening on the way back to the very first flight from Dublin, Ireland to the United States was canceled. It was a chaotic airport. E- Everybody was running around with, I've never seen pandemonium like this scene before. And as got a new flight schedule finally with the airlines, we something I didn't know about Dublin is you go through customs there, so you don't have to go through it when you go back into the United States. And so
mm,
I had brought two apples with me to eat for my lunch to get me through to my dinner. I had made all my preparations. I had my dried fruit, my nuts, all that to get me through so I didn't have to eat the airplane food. And I didn't know I had to go through customs there. So they made me throw out, I mean, these perfectly good apples. It brought a tear to my eye to throw that fresh fruit away. And that fruit was especially good there. And I was already past my mental capability of being stressed and uncertain about my travel arrangements. I was pushed too far. And I have to say, when I got on that plane, they did serve two meals because it was like an 8 hour flight. I ate the dessert and it was almost like I was above myself looking down on this scene and I was eating it in an addictive, panicked rush, drug-like.
mhm.
I was drugging myself and I knew I was doing it. And I'm 4.5 years into recovery. Let me say, I had been 2 weeks on this fabulous vacation with amazing desserts at every meal, and I didn't even bother, it didn't bother me at all. After 2 weeks, I get on the plane and I have a complete meltdown, which is kind of funny. But I was very
Post-apocalyptic,
grateful. Pardon me?
post-apocalyptic meltdown. Yeah.
Yeah, that I agree. That and being pushed to pass
Oh, for
my
sure.
mental.
For sure.
I was up for 24 hours straight trying to travel home, and each flight that I was connecting to was delayed and problems with that. I've never had an experience like that.
Yeah.
So I was a, a banana person by the time it was all over. But luckily, I will say, because of this strong root system that you talked about, everything funneling through there, I had practiced that strong root system for so many years now that by the next day, and I was back in a controlled environment, I was able to easily get right back into my patterns that I developed because we talk about self-identity and who we're becoming. That person on the plane was not who I was, but I was able to get back to where I was going. So my point being is we're not strong all the time. We're still human. So I've had
Yeah.
season, especially early in recovery, where I felt a little brittle, like the wind could snap me in half. Going on vacation is always stressful anyway. Family health problems comes up. Going out to restaurants or a stressful work environment, all those things add to the pressures of recovery. And I want to say to anyone that's listening, that's completely normal and understandable. Nobody expects humans, to be perfect all of the time with what life brings. But for me, I'm fortunate that my discipline and habits really come through when the chips are down. Even if I have this off eating day like I did traveling home, I'm always keen to hop back on. Plus, I know we talked about this earlier. I just feel my best. You talked about making decisions today for how you want to feel tomorrow, and
Mm.
I have that deeply ingrained. I want to feel my best, and I never want to give that up. Do you want to talk about a time where your tree didn't feel strong? Maybe your food wasn't perfect or life's stress hit a little
Yeah.
bit hard. How did you handle that? What did you
Yeah.
lean
Just
on?
uh leaned on my other branches, leaned on what
Mm-hmm.
I could control, leaned on sometimes it's just as simple as leaning on a certain macronutrient that I know will bring me a lot
Yeah.
of satiety or meet some of those needs that I have. Sometimes it's supplementation, to lean on that while until the food can improve. And there were some times when I was so in need of comfort that I would seek it out in food. Those
Mm-hmm.
behaviors are deeply ingrained in me, and 90% of my time I don't even use food that way, but sometimes life really throws you major curveballs or major disappointments, and
Yep.
I do go back to those old behaviors, and there's that term comfort food exists for a reason. So that's what I have learned for me is the importance of um, being honest with myself about why I'm choosing those foods and what those foods really do for me, which is nothing good.
Mhm.
And usually not even while I'm eating it. It's usually, used to say, oh, well, it tastes really good for a few seconds or minutes, and then it's bad. It's usually not even good while I'm eating it.
Yeah.
So again, it's just being honest with yourself. If you are having those foods or having, even in some for some clients, for me, this was true before, it's not so much true now, but for some clients that we work with and people in our community and people I've coached, they talk to us about their binges, and it's for them,
Mhm.
it's the food behaviors that are the issue, not necessarily the foods. It's how they're eating or how much they're
Mhm.
eating. But they could be eating a lot of, a ton of single ingredient foods, but it's how they're eating those foods that is the problem. That
Mm.
definitely could be something to just be mindful of. And again, that when I'm seeking comfort from food, I have to remind myself who I really go to for comfort.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, it's a spiritual practice. It's not another human.
Mhm.
Um, and it's getting outside, it's changing my location, it's doing something to move my body. It's some kind of way to get dopamine that's very, very helpful. It keeps me out of food that doesn't serve me.
Yeah, and I love that we can talk about this because the last thing that we want to do is come on here and say, both of us are perfect and we never make
Yeah,
mistakes and
no,
we never have
I'm
side steps
I'm
and
far from perfect.
our life is just, peachy keen all the time. So, yeah, me talking about my slip the other week and eating it like a ravenous dog. I mean, I literally I'm going to use air quotes for those of you that can't see me. I was using that food to try and calm my nervous system.
Mhm.
I was out of tools at that point. And like I said, it's almost like I was floating above myself watching that scene
Yeah,
take place.
I don't airline travel these days is just such a
Dis-
mess.
Disaster.
I hear it domestically, internationally.
Yeah.
All of this just makes, I have this fantasy. It's far off, but I have this fantasy that someday I'll get my little RV and just buzz around the country like John Madden. Like what, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's where I'm headed at
Yeah.
this point.
I
His
know.
his, I believe, was a fear of flying. I don't have a fear of flying. I care for my mental health more than the airlines
I,
do, so
yeah.
I won't be flying.
I
And
I I won't go into all the gory details, but things were way too out of my control, and I could see how things could have been run a whole lot more efficient, and lack of information of why the delay, why the delay, why the delay. Just all it was a setup for my nervous
for
condition.
everyone, for everyone.
And this flight from Dublin to the United States, I bet had 500 people that they just canceled the flight on. Pandemonium, just totally out of control. So yeah, I'm not at my best in that type of just
Mhm.
mass chaos. So anyway, we've had members ask us, how do I know if I'm actually nourishing my roots well enough? Which is that's a good question, legitimate question, because when we talk about nourishing the roots, we're not just checking off this to-do list. We're talking
Right.
about building a stable internal foundation that supports long-term healing. And you'll
Mhm.
know when you're nourishing your roots well enough when you start to notice. We're going to give you some examples of some shifts that happen. First of all, food becomes quieter. The obsessive thoughts around food, sugar, or ultra processed cravings begin to lose their grip. You might not be perfect, but food no longer feels like your only coping mechanism.
Mhm. Yep, you feel more steady. You're not always, happy, but you're steady. You're peaceful, more serene. There's capacity to pause before reacting,
Yeah.
have the ability to sit down with discomfort instead of, numbing it. Again, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like the whole name it, catch it,
Mm-hmm.
claim it, and change it, right? Those
Oh, I
are
love that.
areas that you can focus on. Um, and you really want to make sure that you name what you're feeling, and then you can process those emotions.
Yeah, perfect. The other one is you recover faster, like exactly what happened to me flying. I had a disastrous day, but the next day I was ready to get back to my gut saying, "Please have mercy on me."
Yes.
When so yeah, you're able to recover faster, and when life throws something hard at you, your bounce back ability time improves. You might still fall, but you don't stay down as long. And this happens to me time and time again. I tell people that struggle with binges, you'll notice in recovery that the space between them gets longer and the time that you're in the binge gets shorter. So they
Yes.
just they work themselves out. It might not just be all of a sudden you never do it again, but they might zigzag their way out of your life.
Hmm. And you start to want growth, right? You find yourself
Yeah.
interested in sleeping, journaling, uh,
Hmm.
you know, service to others, community, not because you're obligated, but because it makes the way it makes you feel, and the
Hmm.
benefits it gives you as a human to do those things.
I agree. Don't you think you never feel better than when you're doing something for somebody else?
Uh, Overall, yes, you just need to be careful.
Fulfilling. It's
Yeah,
fulfilling.
you need to be careful with that. But yes,
I
yes,
see. I understand what
does
you're
help.
saying.
It does help. But there are want you want to make sure that you're giving. If you are giving, you're giving from a full cup. If you're
Oh, that's a good
complimenting,
point.
you're giving to everyone else, you're not doing it from a place of true, you're doing it in a place that could potentially compromise your emotional well-being down the road. So you want to make sure that you're doing it from a place of fullness.
That's true. It's just like the airplane speech that I heard six
Yeah,
times. Put your
yeah.
oxygen mask on first. Okay, I heard it the last time. So, anyway, the next one is your inner voice softens. You start talking to yourself with more kindness and encouragement. I've really noticed that in me that, the airplane example, I did not beat myself up. I was more comforting to myself in that moment. So that self-critical soundtrack gets interrupted more often by truth and grace.
Yes, yes. And again, it's not about perfection. Some days you might be only holding on to one of those branches of
Yes,
recovery.
yes.
And it's again, it might just be that, you're able to get outside, or you're able to stay in community, or you're able to, sit down and do some journaling or prayer or meditation. All of it counts, right? It's thinking about how you're strengthening that root system that matters.
Yeah. I agree. And this is such an important part of the journey. Even when a tree looks dead in the winter, the roots are still doing very deep work.
Mhm.
Sometimes resting is the work, which is something new that I've learned. Resting is part of healing. Sometimes you rely on someone else's strength until yours comes back. But I also want to talk about another truth, and that is roots grow deeper during storms. When we're tested, when we lose someone we love, face a health diagnosis, or get hit with a season of depression, those are times that our roots stretch and strengthen. If we stay connected to our trunk, real food, and nourish even one root like spirituality or connection, it can hold you in place. Do you want to talk about an experience for you that this has been true? Has that shown up in your recovery, a season where things might have been really hard, but in hindsight, you feel like maybe your roots got stronger?
Yeah, living it right now. I would say that I've had to focus on the things that I can change, that which is,
Yeah,
me and my outlook, and my food and my movement, and all of those things are, that's what gives us a lot of peace during the storms of life, for sure.
I agree. So before we finish up, I wanted to mention that I never expected things like self-compassion, purpose, or creativity to come from eating better. Who knew? But when you clear the fog of these ultra processed foods, there's more space in your brain and heart. One of the things that really shocked me was the ability to read big girl books. I was never a reader before, but all of a sudden I had a new interest in reading that was so much fun, and I could just get lost in books. And I'll also say that being on this tour of Scotland and Ireland, a lot of it was tours of different like either museums or we would have people come on our bus and give a tour of the city, but it was so much history. I was able to stay like dialed in. It was interesting to me. I wasn't like
Yes.
jonesing, like, how soon is this going to be over? Where before I might be coming out of my skin. So learning, I've had the ability to tap into that curiosity about learning and education so much more than I ever could before
Huge,
when I was deep in the processed food. Do you
huge.
have any branches that surprised you like mine did on this journey? Any new passions, relationships, or emotions that blossomed when the noise of food quieted down?
No, I mean, it's been for me a long time, so I've had those experiences for a while now, but, um, no, I mean, nothing more than I've shared, no.
Yeah. And we don't always spend a lot of time in our smaller branches, but we've got a dozen of our smaller branches, which are equally significant, but we're just not practicing them as much. But one thing I wanted to bring out is service to others. We talked about that briefly. For me in the season, it's usually time within my own family and through my church assignments. And Jamie, you have always been one that is very service oriented to other people. Has that always been the case for you? Or do you think recovery impacted that?
It's always been my default setting, but again, I've had to learn how to put boundaries around that because I
Yeah.
was serving many times I was serving others from a place of wanting their approval or attention or
Mm.
validation or acceptance. That's not service. That's holding someone
And
hostage.
hmm
So for me, what recovery gave me was the ability to look at what my motives were if I was serving someone and to be honest with myself about what I was doing
I
and why I was doing
I that's huge. I'm so glad that you brought that clarification because you can get kind of lost in when you're serving someone that you're expecting something
it.
back. So, yeah, I love that point. So we're going to wrap up today with some listener questions, but we want to make the point that your roots matter. If you're in a season of doubt or fatigue, don't despair. Go back to the roots. One nourishing meal, one early bedtime, one walk outside. That's where life begins again. I have always said, start with the basics. When
Yes.
anyone is struggling, I always ask about their basics. And you know what? 9 out of 10 times, something is off with our
Yep.
core foundational branches of food, sleep, movement, or spirituality. I mean, you
Yep.
can almost guarantee that if we just start, we don't need to do anything big and elaborate. Let's just flush out the simple stuff and then see what we're left with
Yes.
after that.
Yes. I love that. And again, we don't have to be perfect here. So you might have branches, some that are flourishing more than others. That's okay. Just
Hmm.
keep growing,
Hmm.
and know that you're walking this path with a lot of other folks who have a lot to offer as well. So
Hmm.
lean on them and lean on the recovery community that you're building. If you're part of RFR, lean on that recovery community. Um it all helps.
Yeah. And this work takes time, right? So it's not
Yes.
always visible at first, but when you nourish the roots, the branches will grow, we promise. So be patient. The system works.
Yeah. All right. So, listener questions here. What is one route I should focus on first if I feel overwhelmed by trying to change everything? Um, I would say again, start with the sleep, spirituality, and food. Um, or food, movement, and sleep would be maybe even the more basic. I've I have found that focusing on those 3 core branches gives me the ability to focus on all the others.
Oh, that's very well said. Very well said. The other question is, how do you stay rooted during a stressful family crisis? Which is funny, you should ask this because we hear you on this one. This happens a lot in people's lives. Family stress can shake us at the core because it hits us where we're most vulnerable. And staying rooted doesn't mean you feel calm all the time. It just means choosing, even in the chaos, to return. It's just returning back and back and back to the things that stabilize you. Recently, I had one of those moments, and I was in a conversation with Jamie over something she had an similar experience with, and prayer was her first answer. And as you can see, I reached out to someone to borrow her strength and wisdom. So connection helped, but sticking with the basics, as we mentioned, protecting your non-negotiables.
Yeah. I agree. Next question. I've been eating whole foods, but still feel emotionally unstable. So again, if you're eating whole foods, that's great, but you want to make sure that you're spending time outside or in movement. You want to make sure that your sleep is good. You want to look at your relationships in your life. There's so many things that even if you're, eating as clean as a, monk, that you're actually looking at other ways that you're supporting your mental and emotional well-being. Don't look to other people to do it. Don't look to situations to do it. You have to give yourself the environment to thrive in.
Okay, I have to say something about eating clean as a monk. We were traveling in Asia and we had a chance to stop at a monastery
Yeah.
where the monks made the food. They do eat very clean. I had no idea what I was eating. I could not identify one thing on my plate, but it seemed very, very clean. So
Yes.
you are not kidding with that. The next one is, how can I nourish spiritual roots if I'm not religious? And I love this question because of the misunderstanding that the spirituality roots are limited to religion, and this comes up a lot for us. So, nourishing your spiritual roots simply means connecting to something bigger than yourself, finding a place for comfort when life kicks you in the teeth, maybe sitting in silence, maybe deep breathing, maybe spending time in nature, a gratitude practice, journaling, the arts, or doing something for someone else. All those things help you feel connected to yourself and feeds the spirit in my opinion, in a very powerful way.
Hmm. I agree. All right. What are some practical branches to build a community branch if I feel really alone?
Mm.
Again, this no one's gonna come and do this for you. No one's coming to save you.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta go get out there and do
Mm-hmm.
that. That's something that I've done, and I've done it a couple of times, and you just have to, for me, I stay close to my spiritual practices, and I ask for guidance, and that usually, opens up doors. I have things that are being laid out for me, that opportunities and things I get invited to that I'll take people up on and go do. Um, but again, it takes intention to build a community. A lot of times you can find a community connection through your own interests, right? So something that you might be interested in that you follow down, and you do things in person. Those are all great ways to get involved, um, based on your own interests.
Yeah. No, you're good at that. That's something I've noticed about you. You're very good about getting involved with community. And it works. It works. Even like this trip I was just on, I went by myself. I mean, I was in a group, but I didn't know anybody before I went. And it really gave me the opportunity to assuage some of my fears about doing something in a group where I didn't know anybody, because within a few days I was able to make friends with people and they were very kind.
Yeah.
So, it really filled up my soul to like, I felt like, okay, by the end I have all these new friends.
Hmm.
So, yeah, don't be scared, I guess is what I'm saying, of going to do something on your own. It's okay. It works out
Yeah,
good.
I had a friend of mine tell me that she's like, "I can't believe you go and you do all these things by yourself.
Yeah.
Even eating out a meal at a restaurant by herself, she thought by
Mm-hmm.
myself, she thought was so something that she could never do." And I was like, "Real?" I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
Um, but I've had years of travel and work travel too, and you just get used to doing those things by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And like tonight, I'm going to a free concert that's, I'll just be going by myself just because I want to see this band, and like I don't really think much of it. But for some people
Good.
it's a big deal.
No, this was a huge growth opportunity for me. Even there were some times where we had downtime that you could just go tour on your own, and I felt okay by myself. I wasn't like "Ooh," crying over it or felt lonely or anything. I actually enjoyed it just as well. by
Mhm.
myself, going at my own pace, doing my own thing, stopping when I wanted. So I'm growing, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. It's not as scary as I thought. Last one. Do you think some branches grow first before others? What's your experience? Well, absolutely. Just like in nature, some branches in our lives grow earlier or faster than others, depending on what's getting nourished the most at the time. You've heard that whatever you feed grows.
Mhm.
For some people, the sleep branch grows first because rest gives them clarity. For others, it might be movement or spirituality that might blossom early. You might even find that one strong branch, like nourishing food, makes it possible for the other branches to grow later, like emotional awareness or self
Mhm.
care. So the key is don't panic if some areas of your life still feel bare. Keep nourishing the roots, and the rest will grow in season. Jamie, you want to add any final thoughts?
Nothing, nothing, nothing.
Yeah, this was a wonderful episode. I really enjoyed that. So, if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at Real Food Recovery. Um, I haven't said it in a few weeks. So it's
Recovery for you.
realfoodrecoveryforyou.com, the number four and the letter U. And if you want to find our book, it's on Amazon and you can get the soft and hardback cover there. Real Food Recovery. If food isn't the answer, what's the question? Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.
Take care.